ICQ Podcast episode 473. Is AI about to kill ham radio? Well, hello fellow amateur radio enthusiasts, and welcome to our 473rd episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported this episode by Richard French, Mike 7, Golf Echo Tango, and our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin M1MRB, Dan, Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, Caryn KD2 Golf Uniform Tango, Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa to discuss the latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin Butler M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is AI about to kill ham radio? Well, as always, we'd like to thank our subscription donors who help us pay our way. And we'd also like to thank Richard French, Mike 7 Golf Echo Tango, who sent a one-off donation to us. Really much appreciated, Richard. And he says he's been following the show since not long after he got his license in December 21. So I thought it was about time he chipped in to help with the costs and show the value that he's got for the show. The format of the show is a really good mix, alternating panel, news and comments, what people have been up to, and a feature episode. And I think all this helps the show's nearly 500 episodes longevity. Very listenable and always something interesting. And he says he wishes to pass on his Happy New Year wishes to the amateur radio community everywhere. So thanks there for your very kind note, Richard, and your support of your ICQ podcast. If you'd like to show your support and the value you get from the show, a very simple logic we ask you to do is turn the value you got from the show into a monetary figure and visit ICQPodcast.com/donate, where, as I say, what you send us will help us with our running costs and help us to continue to improve the show. So please do consider ICQPodcast.com/donate. Right, now we're going to join Martin, Dan, Caryn, Edmund and Ed to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including a win big opportunity for student coders and a DMR project in India. As always, hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the ICQ Podcast News Roundtable. Tonight, episode 473, just before Christmas. We have a few interesting news stories for you. And as Caryn just told me, don't feel bad, Martin. Everybody's short on news stories. It's Christmas time. Things are shutting down. And Caryn would know more about this than me, having worked in the newspapers. But hopefully we've got enough for you tonight. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Dan Romanchik KB6NU. Hi, Dan.
Hello, Martin. Hello, Caryn. Hello, Edmund. And hello, Ed. Happy holidays all.
Yeah, it's good. We're all here. I also got Caryn Eve Murray KD2GUT. Hi, Caryn.
Hello, Martin. Hello, my fellow roundtable members, and hello to our listeners.
Yeah, well, I've been speaking to a few of our listeners. They're in good form at the moment, which is quite nice. Also, my side of the pond, Mr. Edmund Spicer M0MNG.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Ed, and good to have you. And down there in Germany, where I forgot to ask him, what's the weather like down there, Mr. Ed Durrant DD5LP?
Yeah, good evening, and hi to everybody, and before we forget, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Weather is cold, it's around 0 and overcast, but believe it or not, the night we're recording this, there's snow due. Actually, tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. We expect the snow to start on Christmas Eve and go all the way through the day. If the weather reports are correct, that means we'll get the first white Christmas here in the last 10 years. So lots of snow shoveling for me to do tomorrow, perhaps. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, that sounds interesting, Ed, and I'm sure that we will not be getting a white Christmas here in the south of the UK. So there you go. Right, start with our first news story. Up to $25,000 are at stake in the new ARRL student coding competition. Now, I'm not a coder, so I would fail miserably on this. I'd probably get found out if I got AI to write it for me. But What do you think, Dan?
Well, I think it's a good idea, but it says here the competition officially begins on January 1st when they're going to publish the complete rules and specification, and yet require the project submissions by March 31st. Well, it just seems to me that that's just not enough time to really code a really good application. So, I don't know. While it's a great idea, I think it's almost a case again of the ARRL not really implementing things right.
Well, maybe they're hoping, Dan, that somebody's got something that's either close to going live or they've been working on it for some time and this will just give them the push to make them move forward.
Well, possibly, but even in this news item, it says something about don't get started too quickly because we're going to publish the requirements and you got to follow all the requirements. I don't know. I don't know. Like I say, the idea is good, but I just don't know about the implementation.
Yeah, well, 3 months isn't very long to produce a really good piece of software. But there you go. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I have two reactions to this, Martin. First of all, I love that this is for students, and I'm in favor of anything that brings the next generation into ham radio with enthusiasm. The fact that there's money involved, well, gosh, that's awfully nice. But, you add money into the picture, and I'm not saying it's wrong or bad, but I think it's something to think about. When you put money into the picture, it raises the stakes, obviously, and people become even more desperate to win and can take shortcuts. So I don't know what the vetting process is going to be on this, but I think people need to be aware of that. I myself don't do any coding, so I don't know what's involved and what the challenges are. But in principle, I think the idea is outstanding. And of course, kids are really into coding through the STEM programs in the schools now, so it is a nice fit. But there are pitfalls, as I say. I don't want to say money corrupts because money is needed. Certainly a lot of good can be done with it, but I would just be wary of how the coding is generated and by whom. Back to you, Martin.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing, I'm going to ask the very naughty question, but I don't expect any of you to answer it because it might get you into trouble. But if the winner writes a piece of code, who owns the code if the ARRL pay them $25,000 for it?
Well, you know what? I'll answer that. And in fact, this is one reason I haven't written anything for the ARRL, because they require full ownership of something. They'll pay you whatever, but as far as I recall, their contracts require that you sign over all rights to it, which again is I'm sure that's the case here.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm sorry to throw the hand grenade in the room on that one. Edmund, you're not a programmer, I know, because you always tell me you're not computer literate, and don't feel bad about it because I don't code particularly well either. But what do you think about the competition?
Well, I'm not these days. The last time I coded anything was probably in the early 1990s using BASIC on my Amstrad CPC 6128 64K RAM computer. So if I'd kept up with technology as it progressed, who knows what I could have been doing these days. That thing about ownership of the code, I suppose that could be a double-edged sword, because if the winning entry contained unknowingly some kind of catastrophic flaw or security problem and the ARRL used it and as a result they got hacked or something of that nature, then presumably they wouldn't have any comeback on the author of the code if they had bought all the rights. So maybe the ownership of the code is a double-edged sword, as I say. The first thoughts that went through my mind were, it says up to 25,000, doesn't it? Well, I have a Baofeng BF888S handheld at home that's got a plaque on the back of it that proudly says it puts out up to 5 watts. Well, if you measure it, it actually puts out 1 watt, but technically they're not lying to me. So this figure that's been quoted, is anybody actually going to win £25,000, or will somebody get, I don't know, £100 and $100 and a slice of Christmas cake or something? Because if they gave that out, technically, they would have paid out up to $25,000. Second thing that went through my mind is, are the ARRL just trying to get a software in on the cheap rather than paying professional programmers? And the third thing is, I know you have to be an ARRL member, but that's free if you're under 21. Does that mean that anybody anywhere in the world could enter this? And if so, potentially, could that bring them into conflict with licensing regulations somehow? For example, in the UK, you are not supposed to use amateur radio for financial gain. Now, yes, I know you could argue that you're not directly using it for financial gain. You're not advertising your software at a price available for purchase over the air, but could you be said to be benefiting financially indirectly? And would that be a problem? Don't know. Back to you, Martin.
Well, that's an interesting point. What do the UK rules say? What's the actual wording of that? Because here in the US, the way the rule is worded, it says you cannot operate an amateur radio station for pay. But obviously, I make money off ham radio, and so does Martin Lynch, right? And so that's not the issue. The issue is what activities cannot be done for financial gain.
Yeah, so I wasn't actually asking that question as such, because I don't know exactly what the wording is in the UK. And even if I did know it off the top of my head, to quote, is it through the looking glass? It means whatever I want it to mean.
Yeah, I think we've all raised some good points. Ed, have we left you anything to say on this one? I know it's been sort of, I think we're pleased there's a competition out there, but there's pitfalls, isn't there?
Okay, reading the text in the short extract we have in the show notes, statement is cash awards totaling up to $25,000 will be presented to one or more winning entries. The inference there is that $25,000 is going to be possibly split across multiple entries. But looking at that from a legal point of view, it could also be read, as Edmund said, that it could be $25 that's split across one or more entries as well, because it's up to. But totaling up to, if you take those three words together, suggests that the total of the money they're going to give out is going to be $25,000. So if there's 5 winners, each gets $5,000 as an example. It's nice that it's for amateur radio operators aged 21 and younger, and that the ARRL student membership is free for full-time students aged 21 and younger. So in the majority of cases, although they need to be ARRL members, they don't actually have to pay for membership to be able to enter the competition. Coding, 3 months, depends what the specifications are. I've certainly turned around high quality commercial software requirements for customers in under 3 months. Professional programmers will do that. It depends on specifications. I mean, if you're asking for something impossible, then it's going to take forever. So we don't know until they actually release what their statement of requirements for the software is. I believe they said it's going to be in Python, but I'm not 100% sure. I heard somewhere else. So it is aimed probably at a more simple, should we say, non-commercial, prove you know how to code kind of situation, rather than it being a piece of software that the ARRL will then use in their business. So hence the problem about it being hacked, etc. I suspect is not relevant. Yeah, until they actually publish the information on the 1st of January, we can't really comment any further. But I believe the RSGB had a coding competition this year, earlier on this year as well. Not that kind of money. I don't even know if there were money prizes or whether it was something else. And I believe that was quite successful. Stepping back a little bit and saying, yeah, for education, it's good. But is computer coding really amateur radio? How many hams actually sit down and write code for their radios or their systems? How many hams write logging programs, remote control programs? There are hams that do that, but we're maybe talking about 0.1% of the ham community. So knowing about it and be able to change things, it's, shall we say, a parallel hobby is programming. Or can be. And I wonder about, the ARRL, who is financed by amateur radio operators, spending $25,000 perhaps on a competition. It's more giving money for education, which is not a bad thing, rather than necessarily it being really part of what a, shall we say, average operator would do. That's my feelings. And I heard Dan laughing in the background, so I don't know if you want to add another comment in there.
No, I just found that what you said there a little amusing.
Well, I think in summing this up, we're pleased that there's a competition. We're pleased that youth could take part. It's for under 21s and it's great. We haven't seen the rules yet. And we've just thrown some pitfalls in that could arise from it, which is what we do. We're discussing it. So, like all stories on the News Roundtable, they're discussed, they're our own opinions, and we ask questions. So, anyway, we'll see what happens.
Just let me add one more thing, which is you might be talking about a way of doing this later on, Martin, in this show, right?
I might be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I might be very much so, Ed. Okay, moving to our next news story. Caryn, you put this one in, and we covered this initially about a year ago, which is great, about student success with DMR projects in radios in India. And this is now got run for a year and it's starting to show success, isn't it? Over to you, Caryn.
Yeah, it's fabulous, Martin. My favorite news stories are the ones that we can talk about and then go back and revisit a year later and do a follow-up and see how it's doing. And my really favorite news stories are the ones that when we go back and revisit, we see how they're doing, and they're doing great. And that's this story. This is in Karnataka, India, a state with many rural areas and villages and people at a definite economic disadvantage in these villages. And they have been, 20 of the residential schools there where the students live have been given DMR, digital mobile radios, set up base stations that were set up for them. A science teacher in each of the schools, trained, educated to become a ham and serve as a mentor to students, many of whom have, in the year that has passed, become hams. So they've been getting on the air. Now, they've been doing other exercises, too, because a lot of the kids, although those have become hams and can get on DMR, some are just practicing with plain old walkie-talkies just to get a feel of it. But the point is they're learning radio science. They're learning how to communicate. They're seeing that radio is a resource. And goodness knows, we've covered enough stories about natural disasters in India to know that radio communication is so critical there. And this kind of a resource is wonderful. And I should add that this is not just an academic exercise, which even by itself would be excellent. This is more than that. These 20 schools also serve as a location where emergency communicators can go and use the equipment and assist during those natural disasters. So where normally we might call this a win-win, I'd like to call it a win-win-win. It is moving into the conclusion of its first year, going forward now into its next year, and appears to be gaining momentum. So I am delighted that we are talking about this, Martin, and I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, well, I think it is good when, we have win-win-win situations. And I know a month ago you were doing the Krampus night situation or event, and over 2 or 3 days on the talk group, Krampus didn't talk to me, but I missed him. But apart from that, I spoke to a couple of ladies in India that came up and on our talk group, put calls through, and I spoke to both of them, and very lovely ladies, very knowledgeable about amateur radio, and I was quite impressed. So long may it continue. Edmund, what do you think on this story of the DMR in India?
Well, it's interesting. I'm just wondering, is this DMR being transmitted into hotspots and then over the internet, or is it simplex point-to-point links between these schools? Do we know?
Well, it could be repeaters. It doesn't have to be hotspots. It could very well be repeaters. When I worked in the commercial industry, we sent out repeaters to customers, and we also had repeaters for hire.
Oh, fair enough. Yes. Okay. Because my first thought was if this activity is going on in rural areas or areas that are prone to natural disasters and maybe power cuts, then that would presumably impact on the availability of the internet. So if it was being done with hotspots, then I could see the system going down. Yeah, DMR's a good choice because it's one of the cheaper digital modes to use because of the availability of equipment. And I know digital modes can work very well at very low levels where FM would have long since given up. So it may be a way of getting into distant repeaters that just wouldn't be possible with FM. So yeah, I'm glad to hear it's going on, and I'm glad to hear it's working well. But beyond that, there's nothing really I can add, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, well, as I say, it's a good one. And yeah, I would suggest that putting repeaters in as well would be one way of improving the situation there. You put a repeater in a school, it's on. The school's on all the time, isn't it? So not saying that's what they actually have done, but that would be one of the things I would think about. Ed, what do you think on this one?
Well, just in the last point, I was trying to check back on the original story, but couldn't find it quick enough. I don't believe they're using repeaters, but I could be wrong. They are, however, putting in base stations at the schools. So within a region, I would presume this is handy-talkie back to mobile DMR rig. And yeah, so if you like, localized communications within village areas, and then base station to base station communication between village areas. That's the impression I got from reading the original story, in any case, from what I remember. So I don't think there's any repeaters, and I agree with Edmund. If the backbone of this was to be running over the internet, that doesn't make a lot of sense in a remote area where you won't have internet. So yeah, my guess is its hub is the base station in the school, and from there it's like point-to-point links from school to back to big town. Yeah, very good. Good to hear it's going on well. I suspect it may be used as a model for other areas if it's working this well. And yeah, good luck to them, and hopefully see a lot more amateurs coming through from this into the community in later life to keep amateur radio going in India. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, all use of technology and amateur radio is always a good thing. Dan, have we left you anything to say on this one?
Oh, for sure. What I'd like to see is a more complete report on this. If we were just talking, are they using repeaters or not? Are they using the internet as a backbone? So first off, what are some of the technical details of their network there? Second, I'd like to hear how many kids participated in this, and what benefits did they get from this project? It sounds like a wonderful thing, and if we could get a more complete report, maybe certain aspects of that could be implemented here in the States or in Great Britain or wherever, as far as STEM education goes. So that's what I would be interested in is sort of a more complete report on how they implemented all this and what all the benefits were.
Yeah, I would say hopefully some of these documentation will come out later, Dan. But this is a little success story, which is good.
In fact, I'm thinking I'll try and look up this VU3DBO, and if she's got an email address on QRZ.com, just say, hey, look, we talked about your project on the ICQ podcast. You might want to listen to it, and we'd certainly be interested in getting a more complete report on your project.
Certainly would be, because we are interested in this sort of thing, which is good. Right, let's move to our next news story. Caryn, I'm going to get you to go first on this one again because you put it in, but Jim Shaffer, KD5LP, is unfortunately a silent key now. And it worries me at the age he died because there's at least two of us podcasters that are at his age or a little bit older. It worries me. Anyway, over to you, Caryn.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I got an email about this yesterday. I know we always report on Newsline, we always report on the silent keys. I do so reluctantly because it's a loss. It's our community, the fact of life, we lose people. But this fellow was a very important advocate for the disabled, in particular hams who are blind. Jim Shaffer was born blind, had a wonderful, successful career in software. Also, as a musician, he apparently was very talented on a number of musical instruments. But what he did upon his retirement, I don't know if he did it before, but he certainly did it after his retirement, was he crafted a way for blind amateurs to get on HF without assistance from sighted people being in the shack. He created two software families and had them available for free download for hams to implement. And people listening may know the names, so I will say they were JJ Radio and JJ Flex Radio. Jim was also involved in advocating for disabled amateurs in general. He would go to the various ham conventions and speak. He would go to, sometimes over Zoom, to the clubs and speak about that. He was interviewed on a number of podcasts, well-spoken man who worked with the Handy Hams. If anybody is familiar with this great organization that's been around for a long time that trains, assists, and gives a overall general boost to disabled amateurs of all ages, including the very young. His death, I know, will hit very hard in the community of disabled amateur radio operators, but his legacy will certainly continue. And for those who can get on the air and make those contacts and enjoy many of the ease of operations that we take for granted, it's because of his life and his work and his talent. So I think in remembering him, people should know he embodied the spirit of amateur radio in that he gave of himself and of his talents for free, asking nothing and giving everything. So hopefully people will remember him well. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, you gave a very good picture of the man, and thank you for that. Ed, what's your thoughts on this one?
I've got nothing to add to what Caryn has said.
Yeah, well, as I say, very interesting guy, and unfortunately, I look at it and he's just died at the same age as I am. So it starts to worry me, boys. Edmund, any thoughts on this one?
Well, unless you are genuinely the oldest person alive on the planet, every day there will be people dying who are younger than you, and there will be people who are older than you. So my opinion, which I know that not everybody will agree with, is that in almost all cases, how old you are is a secondary consideration to the stuff you did in the time that you had. I didn't know this gentleman, and I must confess I didn't know of this gentleman, but from what we've already heard from Caryn, it's pretty obvious that in years, decades ahead, nobody will be pondering his age when he passed away, but many people will be remembering his legacy and using and enjoying and benefiting from the software. And that's where the success lies. So I'm sorry he's gone, but I'm very pleased that he did what he did in the time that was available to him. And that's the legacy, and that will live on for a very long time. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what comes as you get older is you don't want to waste time. And it sounds like what this guy didn't waste his time. Some people just sit around and let the time go. Others of us don't want to waste the time. We're not looking for recognition. We just don't want to waste our time. Dan, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, so I'll echo the other commenters' thoughts here. And just to say also that, Handy Hams really is a great program here. And a lot of times it doesn't get the credit it deserves. And I just hope, and I would expect, I don't know for sure, but I would expect there's someone within the group that will step up and sort of take this gentleman's place. And, it's a great program, and I really hope it continues.
Yeah, well, I hope it does. And as I say, hopefully it's been set up so it's not just one person, but although he would have been a key player. Move to our next news story. The ARDC launches 44Net Connect. Now, Dan, you've done some work with the ARDC. This is quite nice that hams can probably get involved and solve some internet problems with this.
Well, indeed I have. And my take on this is that, so I've worked for the ARDC for 2 years, almost 2 years. And this was, I started like almost, over 4 years ago now. So throughout all this time, this has really been a goal of ARDC, is to make 44net more accessible for the average ham. You got a lot of hams that know the ins and outs of IP networking, and they were always able to grab a few IP v4 addresses and do whatever it is they did with 44net. Well, now and I don't know all the technical details of this, but it seems to me with 44net Connect, it makes that whole process a lot easier. It makes it more accessible to the average Joe ham, if you will. And I think this is really a step forward in using these 44net addresses. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Whether or not this really is makes it more accessible or not, and very exciting I think for hams that are interested in digital communications, and that's the whole thrust here.
Yeah, it certainly sounds interesting, and I know Ed, Mr. Ed Durrant, you sent me this a couple of days ago, thinking it might solve one of my networking problems because I'm on carrier grade natting. If you know what it is, you'll know it's a pain, guys. But it's the way a lot of internet providers are going. And this, technically, if I understand it right, will give you a internet address out there on the big World Wide Web that is yours. And I think it may help a lot of people. Ed, what's your thoughts?
Well, that pretty well sums it up, actually, Martin. I think the key point, though, is as well as being on, if you like, the big internet, the 44 network is effectively the amateur radio internet, if you like, as in things that are hosted under 44 addresses should be something serving the amateur radio community. And although it can be used as a VPN to get around carrier natting, carrier grade natting, that's just one extra bonus, so to speak. Now, yeah, the concept of this, and it is fairly new. It's just been announced. Is a set of web pages that allow you to go and apply for that address easier than previously. Now, it is not straightforward. I've spent 2 days and I still haven't got my IP address, because what actually has to happen is you put in a request to get a login ID. You create an account as you would on another on any other website. The second factor authentication has to be set up to your phone, to your email address or whatever. Then when you log in and start to ask for an email address, it then comes out and says, well, yes, you've got an account, but your call sign isn't registered. So then you have to go through and actually send in proof of your call sign, proof of it being current, and that becomes a ticket that some of the hard-working people on the help desk at ARDC have to work through manually, checking scans of licenses, etc. This is not too far different to what actually happens on QRZ.com as well. But just to say, this isn't I'll go to this website now, get my IP address and start up my server in a half an hour. No, you're going to allow a couple of days to get through all the formalities, and I don't know how much longer it's going to take after that to set up what I'm considering setting up. But the concept is certainly that it should be amateur-related stuff on 44 addresses. By that, I mean addresses that start with 44 dot something. And not even all of those, because part of that range has actually been sold to make the money that is being given out by the ARDC to good projects and to things within amateur radio and digital technologies that need funding. So, yeah, big improvement on what was done previously, what was available previously, but it is new. It's still probably in a month's time I would report back on this and say, oh yeah, it's a breeze. You just do this, this and this and away you go. At the moment, it's still getting on its feet, I think. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one, and as the internet becomes interesting to us, and there's a few things I wanted to do that for amateur radio that the carrier grade natting was killing me from doing. This may get around it, like you said to me. Caryn, have you any thoughts on this one?
Actually, no, Martin. I don't get all that involved in digital, so I will pass on this one.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. It's no problems. And I'm going to ask Edmund the same thing. Edmund, are you likely to apply for one?
You don't really need to ask me that, do you, Martin?
Not
This
really.
this is way above my head, unfortunately. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's when you use internet, you get effectively once you qualify, you'll get an internet address that is yours worldwide, not a shared one like a lot of us have, or whatever. It'll be yours as such, as an amateur to use for amateur use. So there you go. That's the 44 net. I will be looking at over Christmas. Let's see if I can get it going. Okay, well, let's move on. Ed, you put this one up. International reply coupons. Now, I'm guilty of this because you guys got upset with me once before for saying I don't QSL and I don't do this and I don't do that. But this is a big change about to happen, isn't it, in the Universal Postal Union? Over to you, Ed.
Yeah, going back to when amateur radio enthusiasts and shortwave listeners used to receive QSL cards via the post. I'm saying going back because nowadays we have alternative methods. However, if you think about this, you'd like a QSL card from a station in, say, Zimbabwe, and you've had a contact with him as a radio amateur. The guy's probably doesn't usually QSL, but you want to send him effectively a self-addressed envelope. The problem is you don't have access to the Zimbabwe stamps that he would need to put on the envelope to send you his card back when you send yours to him. So what you do, or what you did up until now, was you would include an international reply coupon or two, depending on what the cost is. And these have been around for, 50 years, and was this way of sending something that was effectively a way of sending a check, if you like, but it's one that's standardized and it can be paid out in any currency for postage. And a lot of people use these. Slowly over the last 20 years, certain countries have stopped accepting them. Certain countries have stopped selling them. So now what's actually happened is the Universal Postal Union, which is the association above all the postal services in the world, has actually said, okay, this is silly. This system won't work if only some of the countries have it and others don't. We're actually going to close the whole thing down on December 31st, 2026. So in a year's time. And that's something that, some people are probably not going to be very happy about, but it's been going that way for a while. The question is, if you haven't got the ability to give the person at the other end the money to pay for the postage to send you a card direct, and in parallel to this, the small countries no longer or never did have QSL bureaus, and even some of the larger countries are closing down their QSL bureaus, then what happens with QSL cards? And that can probably go into another discussion now or some other time, talking about the new options we have with things like email QSL cards, which you actually get them as an attachment to an email from the person you've worked, and you print it out yourself. It doesn't have the magic of something arriving in the post, I think, is what many people would say. So the capability of sending safely money to get a card back from another station, or if you're an SWL from the station you've heard, is going to go away at the end of next year. Back to you, Martin.
All right. Well, that's interesting, and at least they've given us a year's notice on this. As I say, I do understand about QSL cards and why people like them, just not one that's excited me particularly. Dan, what's your thoughts on this one?
I kind of agree with Ed there that, this is sort of a thing from bygone days. I mean, things always change, and IRCs were one of those things that were really very useful in the past, and now probably not quite so much. But, it's like a lot of things. It's a sad thing to see it go, but I understand the reason why.
Yeah, well, things move on in our hobby, and as we've said before, new technology has to come in. Otherwise, we'd still be operating spark gap transmitters, wouldn't it? So that's the thing. Right. Edmund, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I got my foundation license in 2009, and I'm pretty sure that it was only a year or two after that that Royal Mail, the British Post Office, stopped selling international reply coupons due to lack of demand, I think the reason was. I can't remember the last time I heard an international reply coupon ever be mentioned, let alone the last time I actually saw one or had one in my hands. And if somebody just asked me at random if international reply coupons were still even a thing anywhere in the world, I think until just now, my answer would have been no, they were discontinued years and years and years ago. So I didn't even know they were still around. And these days, I thought the standard method for direct QSLing with a foreign country, where obviously you can't just use a self-stamped addressed envelope as you would be able to if it was within the UK, I thought the standard method was to bung one or several $1 bills in with the envelope. Certainly I've had a few that way. And yes, I'm old school. I like paper QSL cards, and I like to be able to write a personalised message on each one, especially if it's in a foreign language. I try and put a few words on, and I can put an original wet signature on the card as well. And yeah, okay, I know if you do it online, you can probably replicate some or most or all of those things, but to me, it's still not quite the same. I know it's a minority sport these days, but I think there's something very nice still about paper QSL cards, Martin.
Well, there you go. And as I say, I know you collect them. Caryn, last words on this one?
Last words are fittingly last words. Edmund, you and I are in that sad minority. I love QSL cards. I love QSL cards. I love sometimes the enclosures that the hams will send if they're operating from a park. If I've made a POTA contact, they'll send a brochure about the park. This is basically more for the DX. Obviously, more for the DX, more for the expeditions, they don't enclose anything. But if I've made a POTA contact in Croatia, they will send a brochure about the park. If I've contacted a ham in France, they may send, I got a lovely QSL card with information. The fellow lived in Normandy and sent all kinds of historical brochures about Normandy and Normandy Beach. This is something, yes, we live in a digital world, but compared to what you can get with a QSL card, it is so sterile. And I feel like, amateur radio is still about people connecting with people. Let's not totally lose the humanity. Okay, what does this have to do with IRC? Let's go back to the original discussion. Well, really, you can still send QSL cards. You certainly can. I have to send paper money, and I'm not all that comfortable in some locations that anything with paper money will make it to the destination. You never know what's going to happen if it's suspected that there's money inside. And so if I am addressing a card and I have money inside to cover the postage, I will leave the call sign off of the address. So it looks like a personal letter to the ham rather than a ham radio related piece of mail. If we're going to still send QSL cards, what would be lovely is if hams in some areas who have a PayPal or Venmo account or some digital way of transferring money, I don't mind doing that. I believe back when mail was still permitted between the US and Russia, I actually was able to send some money immediately after making contact with a ham in Russia, and that did expedite things. They didn't wait for my card, they sent their card, and so we probably both got each other's cards at the same time. IRC, quick funny story. When I first got my license, I went looking for IRC coupons. We don't have them here in the post office. I disgraced myself a few times going into the post office and saying, "Where are the IRCs?" And nobody knew what I was talking about. So I had friends in Canada, and at the time you could still get IRCs there, or so I thought. And I was going to say, "Hey, I'll send you a check and you get me some IRCs." But that plan didn't work out either. So look, it's happening. They're going away. No point weeping over it, I guess. But I hope the next victim is not going to be the QSL cards and the QSL systems. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, you give a good point on that one. And, okay, things are moving on. Let's be honest about it, things are moving on. We didn't, 25 years ago, we hardly had email. We didn't have all the extra bits and pieces we've got now. And our hobbies moved on. But this, as you guys who collect the cards say, you get great satisfaction from them. Hopefully you'll carry on getting the satisfaction because cards will arrive in the post. But at least they're giving us a year's notice that this is going to happen, even though it sounds like in many countries it's already shut down due to a lack of interest. So there you go.
Martin, can I just jump in on one point there? The idea of sending US dollars in envelopes is something we do not, I would certainly not recommend, and I'm sure ICQPodcast would not, because of the chance of theft. But not only that, if I receive $3 here in Germany for sending a QSL card to somebody, that's worthless to me because I don't have a local bank anymore. The bank branches are all closed down. And even if I did have, it would cost me €5 to convert the $3 into euros. So, that's not an alternative in many countries anymore either. Within the US or within US held territories in various parts of the world, maybe because you can use the currency straight out. But in other countries, you've got to get it changed from dollars to whatever the local currency is. And yeah, the PayPal route or similar is probably a more sensible option. But then you have to be in communication with the ham at the other end to agree whatever's going to happen. This combined, the IRC stopping, combined with so many of the QSL bureaus now closing down, is basically a problem. We're almost being forced into using the electronic means.
Yeah, you're right. And I would agree with you. I know Caryn does it. And it's an individual's choice. However, putting money into envelopes and sending through the post can be problematic. Not money related, but Mrs. B makes greeting cards, and she makes some pretty damn good ones. And a couple of years now, Colin has argued he's never got a Christmas card because his mum's ignored him, which is absolutely rubbish because I was with her when she posted them, and my granddaughter didn't get her birthday card. And we can only surmise that the fact that Carol makes cards and she makes them very, very nice, and they have a thing called decoupage where you have stacked images, so they're thicker than a normal cheap card you buy in a newsagent's. And we believe that somewhere in the postal system between the UK and Ireland, either country, somebody thinks there's money in them, and they get opened up and thrown in a bin when they find that they haven't got any money in them. So, yeah, if you're going to send money through the post, be very, very careful. Okay, that concludes our news stories for this episode. And as I say, it's a Christmas week, so let's find out what the guys have been up to and since the last time they were here. Caryn, ladies first. What have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Okay, this is Christmas week, so we have the 12 days of Christmas. I've been operating as Whiskey 2 Sierra in both sideband and CW. It's been a rough go. Most days I don't get on until the evenings, although if I can get on during the day, band conditions are a little better, but it's, for me at least, it's been a bit of a rough ride, and I don't have an amp. I run 80 watts, 100 watts at most. Having a great time, though. Having a wonderful time. As with most special events, when I operate with a special event, my goodness, the team spirit is just fabulous. I will tell you, that alone is almost as good as the QSOs, as all the contacts you make. It's just fun. When that concludes, we jump right into January, and I've got 2 events I will participate in. The fabulous K3Y event, which is the Straight Key Century Club's annual event that comes right after Straight Key Night, and that will be terrific. I hope to operate as much as I can that month. It's just another way of feeling part of a greater community. Got to pick my shifts for that yet. And speaking of picking shifts, I have not yet picked my shifts for another event that's running at the same time. So needless to say, I won't be getting much sleep, but the ARRL is going to be having its portable W1AW event that month. And I'll be operating as soon as I pick my days, which will likely be evenings, as W1AW/2. So that's on my calendar. I can't think of much else that I will be doing other than chasing the usual DX and hoping to get out and do some POTA. I've not done much POTA. Surprise, surprise. But you haven't seen the weather here. Haven't done much POTA, and I'm hoping at the very least to get out New Year's Day, because that is a tradition. That's it for me, Martin. Not very crowded calendar, but that's my agenda so far. Back to you.
Yeah, well, it sounds fun. And Caryn, I do have to apologise to you. I did spend time on the talk group while the Krampus Night event was happening, but I missed the time when you guys were on. I worked various people. I worked 2 ladies from India, one from Tokyo in Japan, a couple of guys from the States. I know that Phil was on from Western Australia. It was busy, but for some reason I missed it. And so all I can think of is I must have been a good boy because Krampus didn't want to talk to me. But
well, Krampus will likely be back next year. We've had a lot of inquiries. It was a very popular event. And let me also say to those who are listening who did work K2K, our special event, in case you're wondering where your certificates are, they will be coming. You will be getting a link to download them. The ham who is going to be distributing our certificates is also part of the 12 Days of Christmas. So he's a little busy at the moment, but we will get the certificates out. And Martin, next year you have no excuse. You know why?
Go on.
Well, because you didn't work K2K. Now you've been a bad boy. So now Krampus will visit you.
Okay. Well, I did try, but obviously not hard enough. But, and one other thing, and you've kept this one very quiet. I can edit it out if you want, but happy birthday on Christmas Day from us, the guys.
Oh gosh, thank you. No, you don't have to edit that out. It's a strange day to have a birthday, but what's really nice about it is, in general, you see a lot of happy people. And what better day to have a birthday than to be surrounded by everyone else having a good time. So thank you for that and your good wishes.
Yeah, best wishes from all the team on that one. All right, Dan, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke? Because you didn't make the last one.
Well, I'll also wish you, Caryn, a happy birthday. And I'll keep, in keeping with the Christmas theme, let me mention one thing that our club did. So our club every December has a sort of holiday party meet instead of the regular meeting. And we bring in some pizza and some Christmas cookies. And the program for this meeting is a recap of our previous year, the activities we had the previous year, and the sort of a look to the next year, what activities we think we'll be having and or want to have in the new year, which is, I think, is a great thing. And then we top it all off by having a white elephant gift exchange. And what this consists of is you bring some stuff from your shack that you may not need anymore and wrap it up, and other folks do as well, and you exchange gifts. And we pile up all the gifts on a table, and the way we decide how to choose them, or the order in which we choose them, is we go by the longest license to the least license. The most recent licensees. And a friend of mine, Paul, he's always the one who picks first. And since I've been a ham so long, I think I pick like third or fourth. I forget exactly. But it's a lot of fun. And, sometimes you get something that's really useful. Sometimes you get something that you may not find so useful. But, that's sort of a little bonus. It's like the first Christmas present of the year. So my reason for mentioning all this is I think other clubs, you might want to consider doing something similar to this next year in your club. Like I say, it's a lot of fun and it brings everybody together. It's a very well-attended meeting because we have food there, and it's just a blast. So that's sort of what I've been up to.
Well, that white elephant idea sounds interesting, Dan. And over a long period of time, I wonder if you see the same gift coming up every year.
Well, I tell you what, I almost hate to admit this because I think the fellow who I got it from actually listens to the podcast. But the gift I got last year, I actually re-gifted this year. Now, having said that, it's a very useful thing, just not useful to me. What it was a battery backup switchover device. So you connect a power supply to one set of terminals and a battery to the other. And if the power goes out for whatever reason and the power supply quit supplying 12 volts, it would immediately switch over to the battery backup. And, I looked up the price new for this thing, and it was $60. So that's a pretty decent gift, but I just didn't have a use for it. So I decided to re-gift it this year. I don't know who got it, but hopefully that person will find a use for it. If not, maybe it'll show up again next year, and until it works its way to somebody who actually can find it useful.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking of that, but we all have different uses for different things. So it sounds a bit of fun. Edmund, what have you been up to since last time we spoke?
Well, I spoke to Caryn on the Krampusnacht special event station on the ICQ podcast talk group. And I said to Caryn that I didn't need to worry about Krampus because when I was young, I was very, very good. And almost all my misbehaving has taken place when I've been an adult. And I reckon it can be more fun to misbehave when you're an adult than when you're a young child, maybe. But I'll certainly listen out for Kilo 2 Kilo again next year. The only other thing I've done is Sunday the 21st of December was the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. And for the last few years, I've always done something with Whisper on Weak Signal Propagation Reporter on one of the lower frequency bands. So, for example, in past years, I've received it on 472 kilohertz, 630 meters, and I've transmitted and received it on every band up to and including 10 megahertz, 30 meters. So I was wondering which band to try it on this year. Now, I've got a 40 meter dipole, inverted V, fed in the center with coax that has been up for many years. Earlier in 2025, we seem to have an awful lot of very windy days, a lot more so than in previous years. and my dipole snapped in different places on a couple of occasions. So I thought to myself, right, it's an old dipole anyway, I'm going to refurbish it. So I did. But at the same time, I added another dipole to it. So I put a 20-metre dipole on to the same 1-to-1 balun in the middle. And the two antennas are at 90 degrees to each other. So I suppose it's like a fan dipole, except the two dipoles don't hang one underneath the other. So that works very well, and the 20-metre dipole doesn't interact noticeably with the 40-metre one. I do have wire extensions that I can add on to the end of the 40-metre dipole to lengthen it so it's resonant on 60 metres, and I've got other longer wire extensions I can put on to lengthen it further still to 80 metres. I have lost the 80-metre extensions. The wire's around somewhere, but I don't know where I've put them. So I put on the 60-metre extensions. In previous years, 60 metres hasn't been a particularly good band for Whisper in terms of stations dotted around Europe receiving it. Part of that is that at one time there was actually two different frequencies, one used on the UK allocation and one used on the European allocation. Whether that's still the case these days, I don't know. But anyway, I was thinking, shall I transmit on 60 metres or shall I try something else? In the days before I added the 20-metre dipole, if I tried to tune the 40-metre dipole, the 60-metre dipole on 80 metres, the internal antenna matching unit in my ICOM IC7300 wouldn't tune it. But I presume because I've now got the 20-metre dipole on there as well, the 60-metre dipole will now tune on 80 metres. Yes, the SWR is high, but the tuner inside the IC7300 will cope with it. So I thought to myself, okay, I will transmit and receive Whisper on 80 metres throughout the full 24 hours on the winter solstice. I chose 2 watts because I gather from reading around on the internet that with the 7300, you can set the percentage for your output power. I gather from what I've read, it's accurate down to 2%, which equates to 2 watts. Once you go to 1% or 0%, it doesn't follow necessarily that you'll get 1 watt or milliwatts. So 2% was like the lowest safe level where I knew that was what I would be putting out. And some people out there with some justification would say that any power level that's in watts rather than milliwatts is excessive for Whisper, which is probably true. But my defense on that one was I was putting it into a very inefficient antenna. So I was happy doing it, and I thought at 2 watts, even with a high SWR, I'm probably not going to fry anything inside the 7300. So the results were really good. On transmit, I was received all over Europe and slightly outside of Europe. But on receive, during about a 15-minute period, I received 2 Whisper transmissions from different parts of Australia, and that was about an hour after sunset local time here in the UK. So I can only assume that was grey line enhancement, and I know with the grey line, the lower the frequency band you're operating on, the more pronounced it is. So on the basis of that, if anybody was in any doubt about how spectacular grey line results can be, then try it and you might be very surprised. So had a blast on 80 meters. Normally it's a band I can't use because of really high noise levels from the neighbours' houses, but I was very pleased with those results. I'm going to stay on 60 meters over Christmas, I think. And for those of you listening in the US that have now recently received the WRC 15 allocation between, is it 5351 and 5364-ish, somewhere around there, I know that the power limitation may seem limiting, but if your license allows you to have a go at transmitting on that band, the power limitation is a great leveler. Usually, if you can hear somebody on 60 meters, if they are transmitting at the low power level, if you can hear them, then they ought to be able to hear you. It's not like on other HF bands where you might have 100 watts and a wire and you can hear a station that you desperately want to talk to, but they can't hear you because they're running a linear amplifier and facing their beam in the opposite direction. So it's a great leveler, and it can potentially allow you to reach people or talk to people who you wouldn't be able to talk to on 80 meters during the day anyway, because the absorption in the D layer would just wipe out every signal on that band, and who you wouldn't be able to talk to on 40 meters either, because the critical frequency hadn't gone high enough. So I thoroughly recommend 60 meters. And like I say, if you're in the States in particular and you've just got access to this band, then it's well worth a go. You can clip temporary extensions on the end of your 40 meter dipole if you've got one of those. And as an added bonus, if you've got one of those and if you've got an external antenna matching unit, you might just about be able to tune your 60 meter dipole and use it on 17 meters as a 3.5 wavelengths antenna. And that's a really nice band to have a go at as well. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, Martin. And very quickly, first weekend in January is the KW special event weekend, where lots of stations, mainly in the UK, will be using vintage KW equipment on the air. And one of the volunteers at Amberley Museum, who lives just a couple of miles down the road from the museum, which is closed over the winter period, will be on the air using a refurbished KW2000 that actually belongs to the museum, using our club call sign, which is Golf X-Ray 3 Whiskey Mike Uniform GX3WMU, which is an extremely rare call sign to ever hear on the air these days. So listen out on 40 meters mainly, I think, but other HF bands as well during the first weekend in January. Back to you, Martin.
Well, sounds like you've given us a lot of information. And yeah, I used to own a KW2000. Mine was a KW2000E. But like lots of things, when I ran out of use for it and space, it moved on to somebody else who gave it a loving home. Ed, have we left you much to say? I know you've been very busy, but what have you been up to?
Well, for me, it's 8 weeks since I was last on, because... was it 8 weeks? Yes, because last time I wasn't able to get to the recording, unfortunately. But yeah, I've been doing quite a bit. There's quite a bit that's actually open, ongoing. I've started work on editing a major amateur radio book for 2026, and that's going to take a lot of my time for the next 6 months. The other thing I've started doing, it's interesting, I've talked to some other hams and they're telling me they're doing the same kind of thing. Going through the radio equipment that I have and the kits that I have bought and never even started. Well, I'm selling them on eBay because I'm never going to get around to them. And I've got to be quite hard about that. And also, radio stuff in general or instruments and tools and things that, have been here with me for 5 years, 10 years even, and, they've either never ever been used or they've been used once or something. So, however, having said that, I'm still working on projects. I'm working on projects using just pre-made modules out of China. And that project's a 30 watt HF amplifier. The amplifier itself comes as a complete unit, but it doesn't have a low pass filter, so there's separate modules for that. Then to switch the low pass filter between the bands automatically, when I switch the band on the radio, I need to sense the band voltage coming out of the radio. And to do that, I'm using a comparator module. So really building blocks in so many ways. And it's amazing what you can do these days with all those building blocks to come up with a final product, hopefully. That will get used with my Zygo X6200, which is only like an 5 or 8 watt output. Taking that up to the 30 watt level makes it a rather nice portable transceiver. And I am starting to do more POTA and SOTA and HEMA activations. Because, of course, it's portable operation season, isn't it? I mean, you don't go out portable unless there's snow on the ground, do you? So I shall be probably up on top of a summit somewhere in the sat in the snow in the next couple of months somewhere. And the last one that's a project that listeners have heard about before is I'm helping a ham that's actually coding free remote control software and SDR software to run on Android phones, and it's called Pocket RxTX, and that's been going through development and changes, and the latest version is pretty close to release now, hopefully by the end of the year. And yeah, that's if anybody's looking to remote control their radio, it's a good solution because you can customize it yourself. Most radios have already got the files, but you can create your own as well. And yeah, so that's taken some of my time as well. And yeah, I'm not actually doing the coding. I'm just doing the testing and passing back the bugs. And that, as I said, is something I've been working with that amateur on for probably the last 5 years, and various versions have come out. The latest one has got all kinds of new features, and yeah, we'll probably do a review on it when it's finally officially released. So that's enough from me, I think. Wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and of course, Happy Birthday to Karen, and pass it back to Martin again.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys have been mega busy. I seem to have been mega busy being Mrs. B's chauffeur and getting through the panic mode as to run up to Christmas. I did go to the repair cafe the other day. I remember a repair cafe, and people bring things in for repair, and it can be something non-technical. In fact, most of the stuff I've seen personally to do there has been very non-technical. But people go away with such a warm feeling that you've helped them. That's really, really good. Have operated on 4 meters, 2 meters of 77s, some from home, some from the car. Been playing with my SDR Play unit, both under Linux and Windows. Having a bit of fun with that. Done a lot of visits and a lot of mileage recently all over the south of England, visiting people. I've resurrected the Bluetooth on my Anytone 878, I think it is, 898. The little walkie-talkie anyway. I've been playing with that, which is good fun. And I'm doing a club talk for Sutton and Cheam, middle of January. But the interesting one's going to be is Colin's booked me to go out to Ireland when I'm supposed to be doing this talk. So I'll be doing the talk for Sutton and Cheam from Ireland on the club night there. But so there you go on that one. And I half aware there's a couple other people who spoke to me about doing talks. I know I've got one later in the year, but there's probably at least another one in the next month. Just prod me nicely, at least a fortnight before, just to make sure, touch base that you still want it done, and I've still remembered you. I'm just to make sure it all happens. So without further ado, I think that's a great one. This is the last episode of the podcast for 2025. Next time you'll hear us again after this episode will be 2026. And should be fun. So all that's left for me to do is thank the guys for turning up tonight. I'm really pleased to have you all. I'd like to thank Mr. Dan Romanchik KB6NU.
Well, no thanks needed. I always enjoy this.
Yeah, great to have you as always, Dan. I'd like to thank Caryn Eve Murray KD2GUT.
You're very welcome. I like being with you guys, and let's do this next year. What do you think?
I think we should terrorize people again next year. I'd like to thank Mr. Edmund Spicer M0MNG.
Thanks, Martin, and a very Merry Christmas to you all.
Yeah, cheers. And also Mr. Ed Durrant DD5LP.
Yep, thanks, Martin, and thanks everybody this year. And New Year's resolution for all you listeners: keep listening to the ICQ podcast.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to find or hear here, which is what we try and make it interesting. Right, I'm going to say 73 to you guys, and we'll move to the next part of the podcast. 73, guys.
73.
And happy holidays.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
Now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin M6BOY. Bob McGuire, November 4 Hotel Yankee, has announced the release of a new satellite tracking application entitled Visible Emphasis. I think it's pronounced. I'm really going to struggle with this one. But the software is a modern spiritual successor to QuickTrack, which was designed 40 years ago. It's been re-engineered for the Raspberry Pi 5 and modern silicon. It's capable of propagating 13,000 plus satellites in real time with sub-second updates while maintaining under 5% CPU utilization. So this could be quite interesting. Raspberry Pi 5s, I was looking at them this morning, they're out and they're relatively cheap. Even the unit, which is integrated with a keyboard, etc., you can pick up for just a shy of £100, which would be about, $120, somewhere around that sort of figure. So well worthwhile checking this out for this here. So again, he's also rewritten it for altitude, but not eccentric anomalies from that side. There's loads of searching you can do on this here. It features a hybrid decoupled architecture where the UI, orbital mechanics and network services run on independent threads, ensuring the interface never freezes even during heavy calculation loads. Now that's impressive, to put it mildly. So we're going to put a link to this on the ICQ podcast webpage for you, and you can check out say this new software if you're a tracker of satellites. Then we've got a news story here about 4 Buchanan students who have earned their FCC license. They're part of the Career and Technology Education Program. The 4 passing students are Marley Hines, Tyrone Hartman, Kyle Kirk and Sheldon Cornelius, and they're now authorised to say with an FCC license. They set their exam and, as I say, all nicely passed. So the community school in Buchanan are, noting this wonderful achievement by these 4 students. So congratulations to them all. Opportunity for you to join a worldwide check-in every Saturday at 1600 UTC on Talk Group 91 via the Brian Marston Network. It was started back in 2015 by Dick K6 Sierra Uniform, and the net has grown with volunteer net controllers ensuring smooth operations. You can check in securely with a robust login system, check the logs, upcoming net schedules, etc. And so we'll put all this information on the ICQ podcast webpage for you to check that out for yourself. Just in case you're not a member of our newsletter group, that's probably the quickest way of getting all these links to the news stories for you. So particularly if you're listening or driving in a car, so you can sign up for our free newsletter, and we'll make sure you get all these links for you in your mailbox for you, as I say, every episode. And we finish off with news here that coming in the 1st of July 2026 is going to be a new pool of technician class questions to be released in the US. As I say, there is 27 new, 30 removed, and about 155 modified questions in this new poll. So I say certainly this update is very, very important. So if you're taking your exam after July, make sure obviously you're training for the correct pool of questions that are going to be taking place from there. As always, our friend Dan Romanchik KB6NU uniform, I'm sure will be working on his very impressive study guides, and you can obviously use those to help you pass your exam in the United States. Right, now we're going to head over to our features episode, and we ask the question, is AI about to kill ham radio? As always, hope you enjoy.
And now for this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
Hi guys, for this episode's feature, I wanted to talk about something that's been worrying me for a little while. And Colin and I walked around the Newark showground where the National Ham Fest for the UK happens every year. And we spoke to a number of manufacturers who nearly all said they'd talk to us, but were conveniently trying to avoid it because this subject is totally and utterly loaded. Now, my question is AI about to kill off ham radio? Now, in fairness, there was only one gentleman on one stand that actually did give me an interview while I was there. I'm not going to include it as part of this because, in fairness, I know full well that his company didn't want him to talk to me about it. But he wanted to talk to me, and we had a very grown-up conversation about it, put it that way. Now, AI in amateur radio. Well, let's start away from amateur radio a little bit and use it to write applications. Now, in fairness, I'm a member of Sutton and Sheen Club, and Stuart Brighton, G3YSX, who's the RSGB chairman at this point in time, gave our club quite a lovely talk on how AI can be used in amateur radio. But a lot of it was to do with writing programs. So if you have a need to develop a piece of software, then it looks like AI is quite powerful to do this. And Stuart's talk was very, very good, but it didn't cover the bit that's worrying the heck out of me at the moment. Another person who I'm very, very close to because he's a podcast presenter, Chris Howard, M0TCH, he's also producing a club project for next year. And he has written some code for a Morse code trainer. And he ran it through AI, and AI improved it for him. So Chris wanted to know how the software works and not get the AI to just produce the software for you based on your criteria. So I listened to both of those, and they both got very good results. However, I thought, well, just for a little giggle, Mrs. B has weighing scales. Mrs. B will not work in the metric. She doesn't care about kilos. She still wants to work in stones and pounds. So I said to my AI engine, just write me a HTML piece of code that will convert pounds and stones and pounds into kilos. And sure enough, hit the go button, it went away. 30 seconds later, it had written about 50 lines of code, and I asked it to do it in HTML. Save that little text file away with a file name, and when I click on that file name, it opens up a web browser, and there's a nice little form there. You put in your stones and pounds, and it tells you the kilos. So that was done purely and utterly with AI. No intervention from me apart from me telling me what I wanted it to do. But this is where the but comes. That's all right for writing programming. And in fairness, because we're so in love with computers and we're so integrated with them now, people that can't program can now probably get software written for their needs. So maybe it's good in that way, but I also see the potential of us losing the decent programmers, the programmers that are clever and come up with the innovative stuff. But that's, I suppose, a cost to pay going down the line. So, what was I upset about? Well, let's have a look at what's going on. So, AI is transforming our hobby. It's kind of becoming a digital assistant. And people say, it's a digital assistant rather than a replacement for the operator. Well, I'm not sure. I worked a station in the Netherlands back in the summer where it was an AI station. You called it. It then repeated your call sign, give you a 5 and 9 with a lady's voice, and that was your contact. Now, to me, that ain't amateur radio, but, some people will quite like it. I think the guy's very clever the way he's done it, but it isn't amateur radio in my opinion. Also, there's some interesting stuff going on noise reduction. So unlike standard DSP, it looks like AI can learn the difference between the human voice or CW and static noise. So it's learning, not using just the mathematical equations that standard noise reduction is done. Now there are some very good noise reduction systems. I openly admit I really like the BHI speakers. But as I say, it looks like AI could improve on that. So the other thing is, what they're trying to do with AI is take a very, very weak signal and make it sound like FM. Well, if you make it sound like an FM station, are you going to put somebody else's voice there? Are you going to transcode it into a robotic voice? I don't know. In fact, I would suggest 80 to 90% of all the nuisance calls I get on my phone every day of the week are AI related. They're not real people. They sound like it, but they're not real people. Okay, hyperactive propagation. Well, that one could get me excited. Hyperactive, yeah, great. Well, there's a lot of data out there. The reverse beacon networks, solar information, all the likes. And if we could process it quickly enough, we would have a better insight in what goes on. But the human can't process thousands of lines of code very quickly and work out what's going on. So, I think for propagation, it could very well be good. Now, next one is, and because I don't do Morse code, I'm sitting in the middle on this one a little. So, speech to text or decoding CW. Now, if you're going to do CW decoding or you're going to do speech recognition, does that spoil the hobby? Does it mean that somebody who's spent years learning CW and I just come along and use a piece of software and it does it for me? That's me cheating. Where's the satisfaction in that in many ways? And it does worry me, and it means that if you can literally decode signals out of the noise that the human couldn't hear, you have an advantage by using AI, which, when we come on to contesting, is that fair? In fairness, probably not, but there you go. Now, could it be the end of contesting? Well, that's one of the things that did worry me. I'm not a contester, let's be honest, but I'm not against contesting. A lot of people get a lot of fun and a lot of excitement out of contesting. Equally, a lot of the big, more powerful rigs and all sorts of things and come on the market are for the contesters initially. Let's be honest about it. If we do away with contesting by dumbing it down and making bots talk to each other, then where's the fun in that? You know, a fully automated station could be possible, but who's going to do it? I mean, if AI can check your call sign, check it against a database, work out your operator's name, and all those sort of things, there's no sport left in the hobby there. So the death scenarios, okay, well, AI could become the primary operator in contesting, but the risk then becomes it's just a battle of who's got the best piece of software and who's got the most powerful computer. So that then blows anybody else out the water. And I don't think that's particularly good. Now, I know there have been versions of FT8 that have done a full AI contact, but I think that there's still a certain amount goes on in FT8. Haven't done it for a while, but there you go. And skill of being able to hear a Morse code and pull it out of the air, out of static, will become irrelevant. Now, for years, it's been done. I know that in the UK and the US, Morse got done away with as a requirement for licensing. But there are more people wanting to do Morse than used to. So, you know, it's not dead. The other thing is, if we look at it realistically, remember the chess competitions that people used to play years ago? Well, a computer can pretty much beat any person playing chess with it, or at least hold you to a draw, but usually beat you. Now, where's the fun in that? Okay, if you want to play on your own and bits and pieces, you're never going to win. So you sit there, there's no satisfaction. That's why people have gone back into doing person to person. And that's all very well when you can see the other person. But how do you know in a contest that you are actually working a person and not a bot? So that's where I'm getting very, very worried. The human factor, yes, in fairness, ultimately, ham radio is a social hobby. You know, it was the first social media, really. The joy of contesting and the adrenaline that it gives you when you work somebody in a pile-up, you know, is important. But if you've got a machine that's beating you into a bot every time, then where is it all going to go? Is it going to go horribly wrong? If people stop doing contesting and DX hunting, why would the manufacturers have a market to sell their rigs? Now, you could say, I'm putting a frightener on people. I'm asking the question. I don't know the answer. But it strikes me as if we're not careful, we could AI our hobby out of existence in the next few years. Now, I'm sorry to be made as the arbiter of doom on this one, but just something to think about. I hope this was of interest.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed our features episode. A very thought-provoking idea there, Dad, about AI and its potential impact on amateur radio. And certainly, I think you might have pulled the pin on the grenade there and chucked one in the room.
One would hope so, Colin. One would certainly hope so. We, as always on the podcast here, like to generate discussion. You know, if discussion stimulates the brain, and sometimes we may not always be right, but if we start the discussion going and something good comes from it, I'm really pleased, Colin.
Yeah, as you say, never be afraid to ask the question, because you're never quite sure what you might learn from a question you don't know the answer to. So, no, certainly worthwhile chucking out the question out there. Now, a piece of feedback came in from Ian Hope, Mike 5 India Juliet Hotel, and he just drops a line to let us know that Amado Mike 0 Papa Alpha Mike, who had a moment of infame, as they say. He was on a program called Neighbours from Hell in relation to his antennas, etc. And Ian let us know, unfortunately, he's gone silent key and he passed away recently during a stay in hospital. So obviously, our condolences to Amando and Amando's family, etc. But as I say, it's sad that he passed away, and really just for trying to enjoy his hobby, etc. Unfortunately, he came with some notoriety.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I never met the man. But as you say, our thoughts go with the family on this one. It's never a good time, especially over the Christmas period, to lose somebody, Colin.
Yeah, that's certainly so. Right, well, we would like to thank Richard French, Mike 7 Golf Echo Tango, who is our last one-off donor of 2025. Thank you, Richard, for showing us the value that you find in your ICQ podcast. You could do what Richard did and pay forward that value for 2026 by visiting our very important webpage, ICQPodcast.com/donate. And say it's a value for value system. So what we ask you to do is recognise the value you get in your show, either by sending a one-off or a subscription donation. As I say, all the money that we raise goes towards running the cost of the podcast and trying to improve the show. So please, guys, please do consider that, for 2026. We, of course, like to thank Dan, KB6 Uniform, Caryn, KD2 Golf Uniform Tango, Edmund, Mike 0, Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa for taking part in the News Roundtable. Thanks a lot, guys, for your opinions and views. Much appreciated. And as I say, this is the last show of 2025, episode 473 of your ICQ podcast. And as I say, it's been an eventful year. We've done quite a bit, as I say, a couple of big Handfest shows and a lot of other bits in between. And plans are afoot to get ourselves out and about in 2026, which I know we'll be chatting about tomorrow when I'll be in London, and we'll be sorting out our plans for next year.
Yeah, we certainly will. Looking forward to that. And yeah, it's been a quiet Christmas. The talk group has been busy. Had a chat with a couple of people on the talk group over the Christmas period. So all in all, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, Colin.
Yeah, we'll do. But the most important thing you've got to do, because I don't want to have to tell you off tomorrow when I see you, have you got a nice treat for Mrs. B, her last podcast treat of 2025? Hopefully you got something nice for that cup of tea.
We'll find something nice for your mum, that's for certain, Colin. So no problems at all.
Perfect. Well, I say Happy New Year to all our friends in the amateur radio world, and we will catch up again in 2026. Happy New Year to you all.
Yeah, 73s.
73s, guys.